struggling on when to shake hands and when not to shake hands. We are finding our way through that. Chamber members, distinguished guests, a number of legislative colleagues that have joined us here today. Good afternoon, I guess it is now, just as a few minutes ago. But I want to just tell you what an honor it is for me to join you here today, in particular after the last number of months that we have all been dealing with COVID-19, and in particular the last month or so where Saskatchewan most certainly is finding our way through what has been a very tough fourth wave of COVID-19. It is a true honor for me to be here with you today. Let me begin by just saying a quick word of thanks to Jason Abig and the entire Chamber of Commerce here in Saskatoon for putting this event together. Thank you to Nutrien for your sponsorship of this event. It's greatly appreciated. Mayo, I've said this to you privately, but I really do appreciate the opportunity now to be able to say this publicly. Congratulations on your appointment as CEO at Nutrien. I think I speak for everyone in this room and across this province when I say we're thrilled to see someone with your experience and your skill set lead that corporation, but also someone with as an in-depth understanding of the province of Saskatchewan as you have as well. And let me say, Mayo, I do think I also speak on behalf of everyone here today when I say how refreshing it is to see the Chief Executive Officer of Nutrien in Saskatoon and in Saskatchewan as much as we have over the course of the last number of weeks. So thank you and congratulations to you, Mayo. As I said at the outset, ladies and gentlemen, the last number of months, to say that they have been extraordinary is to vastly understate the matter. Not only are we witnessing history here in Saskatchewan and across Canada, we're living through history, a lot of history, in a very short period of time, and it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy for all of you, the businesses that create opportunity, that drive growth in our province, and really contribute so very much to this great province. And there has been just a tremendous amount of uncertainty that you've been operating under for far too long now. The pandemic has tested your resolve, it has tested your resilience, and in government we have stepped forward to try to support you where we are able, but ultimately what has made the difference in this province, what has allowed our economy to grow throughout the pandemic and put us in a position for a strong recovery is your grit and your determination. And for that I say thank you. Businesses, big, small, and in between, have been finding ways to survive despite the circumstances that we have faced. And it's one of the main reasons, the people in this province, I think we should all be bullish on our future as we find our way to better days. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about why we should be optimistic about that future in Saskatchewan. I want to talk about the progress that we're seeing, even as we deal with significant challenges in this global pandemic. And I want to provide a couple of comments with respect to the upcoming speech from the throne that will be occurring on Wednesday of this week in the Legislative Assembly. I also want to speak about how that speech from the throne will ultimately continue to support building a stronger, a safer, a healthier, a better educated, and a much more independent Saskatchewan. And finally, I want to take the opportunity today to discuss briefly why I think this decade, this coming decade, will be Saskatchewan's decade, and why there's every reason for us to believe that Saskatchewan's best days still lie ahead of us. My friends, we should be hopeful in Saskatchewan. But we also need to be realistic, and we need to understand what the challenges are before us, and today that challenge is COVID-19. In Saskatchewan, as I said, we've been hit hard by a fourth wave of this pandemic, and there are pressures in our healthcare system. And I know you join me in thanking this province's frontline healthcare professionals and all of those that are working behind the scenes that are responding to this pandemic, and in particular responding to this fourth wave of the pandemic. The fact is the number of active COVID cases and the new cases have been falling over the course of the past number of weeks, and that is encouraging for us to see. But our case count in Saskatchewan still does remain high, and that is due to our vaccination rate not being high enough in this province. Most days, when we do the daily case counts, and they're lower today again, but when we do the daily case counts, 75 to 80% of the new cases and hospitalizations are in those that are not vaccinated. Even though vaccinated residents make up the largest proportion of our society, we still have an inordinate number of people in our hospitals and that have COVID that are not vaccinated. And that is why, that large proportion of people that are vaccinated is why we have resisted calls from many to impose more widespread restrictions, to impose potentially lockdowns and ultimately business closures, because we don't think it's fair. And we don't think it's right to impose those sweeping closures, those sweeping restrictions on all of the people when the vast majority of people in this province have went out and done the right thing and they have received their vaccine. In the early days of the pandemic, we didn't have that opportunity. The only tool that we had to address COVID-19 was broad-based restrictions across communities in Saskatchewan, but now with vaccines widely available in every community, in every corner in this province, it doesn't make sense to restrict everyone's activities and take away, ultimately, their personal freedoms. Instead, we have chosen to focus those restrictions on those that have chosen not to be vaccinated through that proof of vaccination system that we have in place. And I know many of you are checking not only your employees, but your patrons as well. And for that, I say thank you. It hasn't been easy, but I say thank you for the effort that you have made, and I'm here to tell you that it's making a difference. It's making a significant difference. It's causing more people to make that choice to go out and get vaccinated. Since we made that announcement in the middle of September, we're up 7% in the province on our first and second doses, a significant increase from where we were in the weeks leading up to that. More than 70,000 people have went out and gotten their first dose, and another 70,000 people have went out and gotten their second dose. 85% of eligible residents now in this province have their first dose. 77% have their second dose and are fully vaccinated, and that is driving down our case numbers in the province. And that occurred shortly after we made that introduction in the middle of September. Since then, and here's the impact. Since then, our 7-day average of new cases is down about 45%. Over the course of roughly the last month, we're down about 45% on our 7-day case count. Our active case count is down about 40%, and it continues to decline. So again, I say thank you. What we are doing is working. It's the reason that we have been able to avoid enacting or imposing more broad-based, widespread restrictions in our communities, because our trajectory is improving, and it's improving greatly. I don't have to tell any of you that we're living through what are very extraordinary times. They're very challenging times. For those of you that manage or operate or own a business, this is unlike anything that we have faced before. But in spite of those challenges, we have seen tremendous progress in this province. And we should just pause to take a look at what is happening in Saskatchewan today. We've seen a recovery. We've seen a recovery in our employment to 99% of pre-pandemic levels. In fact, in September, the rate of job growth was above the national average, while our unemployment rate was below the national average. Exports in this province are up 20% in the first 8 months of this year, and that's building on an already incredible performance in 2020, where we led the nation in export growth. In August, our year-over-year manufacturing sales rose more than 45%, second in the nation. But the strongest indicator of confidence in our recovery, the strongest indicator of confidence in our province is the unprecedented surge of investment that we have seen arrive here over the course of the last number of months. This year alone, during what has been a very challenging year, likely one of our most challenging years, projects over $10 billion have been committed to be invested here in Saskatchewan. Projects that will create thousands of jobs during the construction period, thousands of jobs during their operation, and thousands of jobs across this province for decades to come. We could look at what's just happening in this area, in the Saskatoon area. Just east of the city, we have Northern Nutrients, who's building a $25 million urea fertilizer manufacturing facility. We have Clean Seed, who's going to soon be assembling their Smart Seeder Max S at their new plant in Saskatoon. You just go down the road a short while, you see AGT Foods. Their investment continues with a $65 million investment in their facility in Delisle. We see Ingredion, a Fortune 500 U.S. company, coming in to Saskatchewan for the first time, buying Verdient Foods. These are all projects in sectors where we traditionally have growth in the province, yes, in agriculture and fertilizer. But we're also seeing investment pour into other emerging sectors in this city and in this province as well. In the first half of 2021, for example, venture capital investments in Saskatchewan surpassed $170 million. That sets a new record for annual investment in just the first 6 months of this year. A lot of that money was raised by companies that are based right out of this city in Saskatoon. And we're all familiar with names like Vendasta and Seven Shifts and Coconut Software. These are companies that are literally putting this city and this province on the map in the tech world. Companies that are located, yes, in urban Saskatchewan, but often relying on their roots in rural Saskatchewan. Catherine Renier, for example, the CEO of Coconut Software, most certainly is an example of that. She grew up on a farm near Prudhoe, just north of Saskatoon, and in an interview about a year ago in the Financial Post, many of you may have seen it, Catherine recalled the early days when Coconut Software had lost a significant large contract. The timing for the company, and for Catherine by extension, was terrible. They had just set up an office in Saskatoon, and what was she to do, losing this very large contract? Well, she did what many of us in this province would do. She phoned her mother. In the article, in the interview, she said, "I was bawling my eyes out." And my mom said, "Catherine, you need to pull yourself together. You can do this. Just figure it out." And then her mom ended the call. Catherine thought she likely had to get out to the field to help with whatever was happening that day, and she understood. But folks, is this not that dissimilar of a conversation that happens in this province all the time? Right down to that very succinct piece of advice. Just figure it out. Growing up, I heard that from my father, not once, not twice. I think he might have told me that this week when I was having some particular challenge. Well, Catherine Renier, fortunate for her, fortunate for Coconut Software, and I would say fortunate for Saskatoon and Saskatchewan. She is a very resourceful and resilient person, and man alive, did she figure it out. Earlier this month, Coconut Software has announced that it raised $28 million additional dollars to expand its business line with banks and credit unions. It's absolutely incredible. My friends, the tech sector is growing in Saskatchewan. It's just about to continue to grow even further. It's part of not only the tech sector, I would put forward it's part of your business sector, and for that and this example, we should be so excited. Here's something else that we could be excited about. Over $1 billion, well over $1 billion, invested in the expansion of our canola crushing industry in Saskatchewan. A huge boost to our provincial economy and a huge boost to our province. The Western producer is calling Regina, and I quote, "a smoking hot spot for canola crush plants." Two of the largest agri-food companies in the world, Viterra, Cargill, are building new facilities in the Regina area. A total investment north of $1 billion on those two facilities. Meanwhile, if you go southeast of there to the Ceres facility at Northgate, just southeast of Estevan, an additional $350 million being invested in another canola crush facility there. Move over to Yorkton, just north of Yorkton, Richardson International, also doubling the capacity of their facility that's already been operating there for a number of years. In the plan for growth that we had put out a couple of years ago, we set a goal of ensuring that we could achieve 75% of the province's canola production would then be crushed here in the province. We want those jobs in this province. And with these investments that have been announced, we're going to meet that objective, and we're going to meet it a lot sooner than 2030 and a lot sooner than we had anticipated. In that same plan for growth, we had put forward some very bullish projections with respect to our potash industry. At 2020, at about $5.5 billion in exports, we had put forward a projection that we feel that industry could likely achieve $9 billion by the year 2020, and we're likely going to achieve that goal sooner than we had anticipated as well. In this province, over the course of the last 15 years or so, we've seen more than $20 billion invested in the potash industries by companies like Nutrien, companies like Mosaic. Now K+S has built a mine here. That investment has been to expand, yes, but also to modernize, and sure, it's competitive and sustainability matrices are there as we go into the future. And today, the potash industry is the most advanced potash industry in the world. It's the most efficient in the world, and it's the most sustainable potash industry in the world, supporting over 6,000 families in this province, and for that, we are appreciative. The companies, Nutrien, Mosaic, K+S, are exemplary corporate citizens, and we're seeing that here today. And they most certainly are making our province stronger. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the industry that we have as we know it today. That is the foundation that we see now a company like BHP is now building on as it moves into Saskatchewan with their $12 billion investment at Jansen, the largest single sector investment that this province has ever seen, and the largest single sector investment that BHP as a company has seen. 3,500 construction jobs, 600 full-time jobs in this city and at the mine site on completion. A company that makes community engagement every bit as important and a priority like Nutrien, like Mosaic, and like K+S. So once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the potash companies that have operated in this province and have most certainly made our communities and our province better, stronger, and attracted people to live here. So I want to take the opportunity as well to thank you, Mayo, and thanks to everyone that works in the potash industry for not only what you give back to our communities, but for the faith that you have had in this province as Nutrien, as Mosaic, as K+S, as a potash industry collectively in making Saskatchewan a leader in the world when it comes to sustainable, affordable fertilizer production. And thank you. Again, over the course of this past year, and what admittedly has been one of our most challenging years that this province has faced, there are so many other investments for us to look at and talk about and ultimately be excited about. We see in Regina the first wheat straw pulp facility, $350 million project, creating 110 new jobs. The Grants group of companies, hiring an additional 1,000 people, bringing their workforce up to 4,400 people, and congratulations to the Brandt group of companies that has recently bought service equipment. Let me just finish up by talking a little bit about another industry that maybe at times flies under the radar, and I find that curious as to why it flies under the radar, because it's an industry that is doing very, very well, and that's the forestry industry. In 2020, last year, we produced about $1.1 billion worth of forest products. That was up 30% year over year. 2021 is shaping up to be an even stronger year in the forestry industry, an industry that supports about 8,000 jobs in this province. But we're just getting started in that industry as well. We are on the cusp of what will be the largest expansion in the forestry industry that this province has ever seen. About $1 billion has been committed to projects that are going to create a further 3,000 jobs in this industry. The Prince Albert Pulp Mill has been closed since 2006. 2006 was the last time my beloved Edmonton Oilers were in the Stanley Cup final. They lost to the Hurricanes that year, the Carolina Hurricanes, in 7 games. They almost made it. 15 years later, only 2 Oilers attendances in the playoffs at all over those 15 years. That mill in Prince Albert is still closed. This has been a frustrating time for people that live in the city of Prince Albert, the surrounding area. It's been a frustrating time for Oilers fans. But that wait will be over soon. And not to tie my Oilers' success to the success of the pulp mill, but we are 5-0, and I believe we're leading the league or tied at the moment. But in addition to that, and more important than that, Paper Excellence has plans to invest over $500 million to upgrade the mill, which is expected to reopen in 2023, creating more than 1,600 jobs. Meanwhile, we see Dunkley Lumber and Carrot River. We have Carrier Forest Products and Big River. Both are upgrading their sawmills in each of those communities. And we see One Sky Forest Products, a new entrant into the Saskatchewan forestry industry, planning to build a $250 million OSB plant north of Prince Albert, creating another 700 jobs. It's worth noting as well, with respect to One Sky Forest Products, they're moving forward in partnership with a number of First Nations communities and First Nations organizations. Nearly, in fact, in Saskatchewan, and this is one of the items that we really need to talk about more. But in Saskatchewan, we lead the nation when it comes to Indigenous engagement in our forestry industry. Nearly 30% of the workforce in Saskatchewan's forestry industry is Indigenous, far ahead of any other province in the nation of Canada. Beyond that, nearly over 30% of the provincial timber supply is also allocated to Indigenous businesses. No province even comes close to that percentage, not even close. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an example of economic reconciliation economic reconciliation in action. If this province is truly going to move forward, we need to ensure that Indigenous people are full and active participants in the economy. The forestry industry has been doing that for decades now, and now we see many, many other industries, including the potash industry, that is doing this and doing it in spades. So that's some of what is happening in this province in what has been one of our most difficult years. Imagine what we can do when we find our way through this pandemic. Imagine what we can achieve in this province together once we get to Wednesday. As I said, we're going to release our speech from the throne. We'll outline a number of initiatives that are going to help us to build on the momentum that we see in the economy today and some of what I have spoken about. A number of initiatives that are, quite frankly, going to improve the quality of life for all of us in Saskatchewan and create opportunities for our young people, that next generation, to ensure that they can enjoy the Saskatchewan that we feel we can build for them. You're going to see some familiar themes, of course: renewed commitment to infrastructure, public infrastructure. I talked a lot about private investment, but we need public infrastructure to ensure that private investment is attracted here and people move here. Since 2007, and we had the honor of forming government, $37 billion is the amount that we have invested in public infrastructure. That's to upgrade and improve our roads. That's to build overpasses at Martensville and Warman. That's to build a Jim Pattison Children's Hospital here in Saskatoon, overpasses in the city of Saskatoon. That's significant investment that is very, very crucial to helping us attract those projects that we want to attract to our province. But there's more work to do, and so we have made renewed commitments around the investment as we look forward to the year 2030. Another $30 billion we will invest publicly between now and 2030 in schools, in hospitals, and in the infrastructure that we need to attract investment to our communities, but also to ensure that our communities are places where people that want to work in those industries want to live. We also plan to continue to offer very targeted incentives to a number of industries to ensure that we are doing everything we can to attract those jobs and that opportunity into our province. I mentioned earlier the growth in the tech sector. We've already extended the Saskatchewan Technology Startup Incentive another 5 years. We have incentives in place to encourage exploration of base metals, of precious metals, of diamonds, all opportunities that lie before us in this province. We've invested $31 million to build a rare earth element processing facility right here in Saskatoon. Construction of that is underway, and that facility should be operational next year, and we're going to build another mining industry in this province. We'll be enhancing the Saskatchewan value-added agricultural incentive to continue to build on the substantial growth that we are already seeing with the canola crush investments as well as others. There is going to be a helium action plan that will be announced soon. Now, I just want to be clear, I'm not announcing that program today. I was just going to float that trial balloon out there and see how it goes. And that's a terrible joke. One that I'm sure the helium industry is sick of. But the reality is helium isn't just for balloons. Helium is a very, very important product in medical research. It's used as a semiconductor in manufacturing, fiber optics, as well as in nuclear power generation. And Saskatchewan, we happen to have very large deposits of helium, and investment is already flowing into this sector, and this is exciting. For example, North American Helium has invested $32 million in their helium purification facility. And our goal is to work with the industry to ensure that our province of Saskatchewan produces 10% of the world's helium by the year 2030, and that's achievable, it's attainable, and we're going to make every effort to get there. We're also continuing with the incentives that are increasing jobs in our energy industry. And yes, we talk about the energy industry in Saskatchewan. For example, earlier this year, Husky Midstream became the first company to complete a project under the Oil Infrastructure Investment Program. The company invested $82 million in our province. It created 450 construction jobs, and it expanded its gathering facility near Spruce Lake, Saskatchewan. Ladies, our growth plan puts out very, very concise goals with respect to oil production in this province. We're at about 440,000 barrels a day today, and we want to grow that to 600,000 barrels by the year 2030. That's sustainably produced Saskatchewan oil. In fact, if the rest of the world produced oil in the way that we do here in Saskatchewan, global emissions from oil production would be reduced by 25% overnight. That is how sustainable our energy industry is here in this province. When it comes to energy production, we'll continue to take, yes, an all-and-above approach to how we produce that in Saskatchewan. We're investing in renewables, yes. We've invested in wind power. Our province's largest solar facility just came online a number of days ago, but we cannot do this at the expense of our baseload power capacity. We're building, yes, new natural gas power plants, one coming at Moose Jaw, to provide that baseload electricity at an affordable price to back up those renewables for our communities and our industries in this province. And as long as we hold the privilege of forming government here in Saskatchewan, forming your government, the province will have dependable, secure, affordable supply of power for all of us to use. And that is why we are moving forward quite ambitiously with the conversation and ultimately procurement of small modular reactors in Saskatchewan. We have signed a memorandum of understanding some time ago with the provinces of Alberta, Ontario, and New Brunswick to further the research partnerships around SMRs. Cameco has been very active in this area, as Cameco, a Saskatchewan-based company, is aiming to be the fuel supplier of choice for SMRs in the future, and quite likely will be. In Saskatoon, we have the Sylvia Fedoruk Centre for Nuclear Innovation, which is at the forefront of advancing some of this SMR research. Folks, we simply cannot meet the challenge of reducing our emissions profile here in the province, providing that affordable baseload power without looking at nuclear power and without having a very serious look at nuclear power. The world needs steady, reliable baseload electricity, but it's imperative, yes, that we cut our emissions and cut them substantially, and that doesn't leave us with a lot of options in this province. Nuclear is our largest opportunity, and most importantly, it is a source of clean, carbon-free baseload power. Ladies and gentlemen, in this speech from the throne, you'll also see a continued commitment to research. We continue to support our Crop Development Centre at the University of Saskatchewan, our Vaccine and Infectious Disease Organization, or VITO, as we know it. We've invested over $15 million to support the initiatives at VITO in not only pandemic vaccine research, but now development of those vaccines and ultimately the manufacturing of those vaccines for not only animals but also humans as we move forward. And thanks, now we see some private investment moving into that space, and for that we are appreciative. Mayo mentioned GIFTS, of the Global Institute for Food Security. We just announced just over $3 million to support a new engineering biology center at GIFTS. And Mayo, I would reiterate, we are so very thankful for Nutrient's involvement in GIFTS, and I think there is much opportunity as to what the Global Institute for Food Security will do for this province in the years ahead. Everything I've described thus far you can put into one category, which is really the broad category of growth measures for our industries and for our opportunity. Actions we're taking to ensure that our economy continues to expand, continues to grow, continues to create opportunity not only for us, but create opportunity for that next generation and generate the revenues to support the quality of life that we've come to expect in Saskatchewan. We need, for example, a growing economy if we're going to continue to invest in healthcare. And we are investing in healthcare. I mentioned the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital a short time ago, but we're also investing now in Saskatoon and Regina, and you'll see in the months ahead the start of planning and construction for what is called urgent care centers in these two communities. What these centers are is they are aimed at reducing the wait times that we have in our emergency rooms. They'll provide an alternative level of care for illnesses and injuries that are not considered life-threatening, but do require immediate attention. They fall between that family practitioner and the emergency room so that we can alleviate some of the pressures in our emergency rooms. We continue to plan for new facilities in Prince Albert and Weyburn. We're looking at long-term care facilities in La Ronge and Grenfell, and now a large one in Regina. We need to focus on that growing economy if we're going to continue to invest in education in this province, and we are investing in education. Last week we opened a new school in Weyburn. Schools under construction here in Saskatoon, in Regina, in Moose Jaw, in Carrot River, La Loche, Blaine Lake, and in Lanigan. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we need a growing economy so that we have the resources to continue to keep our communities safe. Overall crime rates in this province are down, but here's the challenge. Violent crime and property crime in many areas are not down, they're up. And this situation is, quite frankly, unacceptable, and it needs to change. In the speech from the throne, you're going to see a number of measures, enhanced law enforcement measures to address crime, particularly in the areas of drug, repeat offender, and property crime. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we understand that a robust law enforcement response that's just one aspect of an effective crime reduction program or an effective crime reduction effort. We understand that addictions in many cases fuel this criminal behavior, and that's why the government is also alongside going to make a historic investment to support those people that are struggling with addictions, and we want to support them in their rehabilitation. Last year, we saw an investment in an addiction center in Estevan. It opened with 30 beds. 15 of those beds were focused on those that are rehabilitating from crystal meth addictions. In the coming months, we are going to actively and ambitiously explore other opportunities to increase not only treatment but detox spaces across this province. And soon, very soon, you are also going to see the launch of 3 new community wellness buses that are going to provide mental health and addictions supports in our communities. Those same supports will also be available at the aforementioned urgent care centers. My friends, this is just a little bit of a preview of what we're going to see Wednesday in the speech from the throne. You're going to hear a lot more about it Wednesday and the days after that. This is some of what your government plans to do to support Saskatchewan's recovery, why we are so ambitious in supporting that recovery so that we can build ultimately a better Saskatchewan for everyone. So let me close with this. Many people have said that the world will never be the same after this pandemic, and I suppose to an extent that's true. We're going through what is a very challenging situation that will reshape how we live our lives. It'll reshape and it'll reorder really some of the priorities that we have in our lives. But there are some things that just simply will not change. There are some immutable facts. And among them is this: the world's population continues to grow. I think Mayo would mention that. And the world also continues to get richer. A few months ago, Credit Suisse, they released an annual report on global wealth, and here's what it revealed. The number of people in the world with wealth between $10,000 and $100,000 US has more than tripled over the course of the last 20 years to 1.7 billion people. The report also states this: this reflects the growing prosperity of emerging economies and the expansion of the middle class in the developing world. Here's Saskatchewan's opportunity. Today, 1 person escapes extreme poverty every second, and 5 people a second are entering the middle class. Let's repeat that. 1 person escapes extreme poverty every second, and 5 people enter the middle class each and every second. This is Saskatchewan's opportunity. That is why I am so optimistic about the future of our province, and why I hope that you are as well. The source of this province's wealth originates with our exports. And now we have 5 more people to export to each and every second that passes. People who are better off, they want more food, particularly protein. Well, Saskatchewan can provide that food. We are a global agricultural powerhouse. We have more than 40% of Canada's arable land. People who are better off, they want more energy. Well, Saskatchewan is an absolute leader in the production of not only sustainable oil, but we sit on one of the largest high-grade uranium deposits in the world, and we have companies that are bringing that uranium to the world. People who are better off, they want more fertilizer so that they can grow their own food. We have that covered as well. Saskatchewan is home to more than 40% of the world's potash reserves, and now we have great companies like Nutrien, like Mosaic, like K+S, and now BHP that are going to bring that fertilizer to the world. People in developing countries also increasingly want what I call know-how, innovation. They want better ways of doing things, and you can find that here as well. We're a leader in crop science. We are a leader in nuclear science. We're a leader in carbon capture and storage and enhanced oil recovery, and increasingly we're a leader in information technology. Ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic has slowed the growth in Saskatchewan, yes, and it's slowed that growth around the world. But the fundamentals of the global economy have not changed, and the world is starting to rev its economic engine, and Saskatchewan has precisely what it wants. We have the food, we have the fuel, we have the fertilizer, increasingly we have the innovation, and we have the most important element, and that's the people. Hardworking, determined, and ready to build a future that is absolutely bursting with promise and opportunity. We have the most strong and sturdy foundation that I think we have ever had. We have all of the tools, despite the challenges that we may face today. We have all of the tools to build a stronger, a safer, a healthier, a better educated, and a more independent Saskatchewan. We can build the Saskatchewan that we all desire. Thank you very much for coming here today. Have a great week.
Thank you, Mr. Premier, for your remarks this afternoon. And thank you for your steady hand on our province's economy at this challenging time. Saskatchewan is well positioned to weather the current storm and emerge stronger than our neighbors to the east and west. Recent investments and the exciting new opportunities you touched on today are evidence of that. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Graham.
Mr. Premier, do you have a few moments for some questions?
Sure.
Members of the media, the Premier will be available for